Tarik. Nice to see you on the What Podcast. It's actually
Hey,
What Not Why now.
there we go. Hey, Natalie. Good to see you.
Yeah, welcome to the show. I'd love to give you a chance to introduce yourself and let people know what the highlights of your career have been so far, and maybe whatever you think is important for them to know.
Yeah, hey, it's so great to be here. I love these conversations. I'm usually the listener, of course, in session, so talking about myself is kind of strange, but I will try my best. Tarik Ali, executive coach based out of Toronto. I work one-on-one with founders and senior leaders and execs across different industries. It's my favorite thing to do in the world except play golf. The full circleness of this conversation is hitting me as I speak. I know I was part of your cohort at Coach Academy a few years ago. So it's awesome seeing you, and I'm pumped for the next hour of just catching up here.
Great. Well, why don't we start with it's been a couple of years since you graduated and became a certified coach with the Academy or from the Academy. What's happened for you? What has that been like?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's wild. I actually moved into this place halfway through that certification, so it's like the time. It's funny how you can associate time with like a location. It's been quite the. Well, let's start by just, can we talk about Kelly first? So Kelly
Yeah,
Wood, of course, our instructor back during that program. She's now my exec coach. So just in terms of get that
nice.
full circleness is amazing. And if she's listening, Kelly, I appreciate you so much. And she knows all the details behind the journey here. We went from Natalie, like the day that I decided to sign up for Coach Academy after speaking with Wendy over that Christmas break a few years ago. I hit that button not knowing, am I going to love this? Am I going to want to keep this door open? Or is it going to be something where I'm like, oh, you know what? This isn't really for me. And I think I hit a point with that decision where um, I had enough of an inkling that it would be something that I would love doing. But I showed up to class on day one, not really knowing. And then by the time I met Kelly, I was like, yeah, okay, this is what I want to do. I am an open book. We were talking a bit before we hit record about like LinkedIn and how I approach LinkedIn. It's open book policy with me, which I really enjoy. And so I'm happy to dive into like the different elements of the journey. But we've gone from like, hey, do I hit this button? Am I going to like this? To, okay, I really love this concept. Let me super nervously practice on my peers and my friends. Let me buy my friends coffee to, give me 30 minutes of their time so I can coach them, to now having like a roster full of CEOs and execs
Hmm.
who sit with me weekly, and we're working through stuff that really excites me, and seeing their growth just fires me up. So now we're in a snowball right now. This has become my life, which is really cool to say. And oh, you got me in a roll already. If you don't stop me, I won't stop
Yeah.
talking. But
Well,
I'm pumped about yeah.
your experience is really what I hear a lot from people who come to our coach certification program. The coming in kind of blind, not sure what to expect, and then having this realization at some point that I guess 99% of people say, oh, I really want to do this as a career or as maybe a full-time part-time gig kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the other thing that you said is really that you went from that to a full roster of CEOs as your clients. That's the dream for a lot of coaches. So can you tell me a little bit about what did it take? Mindset, focus, courage, whatever it was for you. What did it take?
Yeah, no, look, I appreciate that. I think sometimes like as we level up in our lives, like that new level becomes the normal. And so outside of our conversation, like I'm just kind of going about our day. But we sit here and reflect, like, yeah, it's come a long way. And I think I'm going to keep embarrassing Kelly because she's been such a big part of this journey. But I think for me, the biggest impact um, has been like building the really deep awareness of the three or four biggest fears or pressures that I was sitting with a few years ago when I was starting the journey, and working through those things. I think if we hadn't looked at those things in the face, right? Whether it's fears about money, whether it's about growing up in a household that celebrated, having a corporate role and having the safety, and if you're listening and not watching, like safety in air quotes of a
Mm-hmm.
corporate role, right? Whether it's about the, my relationship with rest back in the day and burning out. And if we hadn't looked at those things and built this whole process in a way where I could do it my way that felt right to me, where I felt safe along this journey, then like you and I aren't sitting here right now. And so I think that it's funny, like we talk about getting into executive coaching and doing this for our clients. And I'm like, got to do it for myself too, right? Of the stuff that was blocking me. So the short answer, and we can open up about all these things, right? But the short answer for me was like looking that stuff in the face directly with Kelly, and like rapidly working through that to clear up the space for me to do the things I'm doing now.
Right. And so it sounds like you decided early on to hire Kelly as a coach.
Yeah.
So tell me about what made you decide to hire a coach?
I I think so, like we finished the program and like I'm focused on getting the homework done in the program and getting the certificate, so that part's done. And then there was a bit of a gap where, I was sitting there still thinking that, okay, hey Tarek, like you've done the thing, you've done the education, like I know deep down that this is what I not only want to do, but like I know this is it feels weird to say like what you're meant to do, but it felt that way. Like I don't know if that's kind of woo woo, but it felt like, oh, this is really aligned to my like what brings me joy, what I can help other people with, things like that. And but there's still a gap there where I was like, okay, Nathalie, like Tarek, I'm gonna have to wait like 10 years. I have to wait 15, 20 years before I can actually do this. And we talk about the inner barriers that Kelly and I started working through. One of them was this idea of like, what does an exec coach need to look like and sound like? And am I in that mold? Like that was a big thing that we started talking about. So we had this gap where I was sitting here in this chair every day feeling like, okay, I just got to wait 10 years. I hit a point where I started realizing that there were a few things that were, in my own way of taking a crack at this. And, there's a bunch of coaches online and a lot of people that you could start working with. But I'm like, I know Kelly, like I trust her and I've seen her in action. We speak the same language. And I'm like, if I'm going to open up fully and be with somebody who I think can, in a few sessions or a couple months, just help me pinpoint this stuff, rapidly overcome it, design solutions that work for me and how my mind is wired. Like I'm not going to go to someone new. Like I'm going to go to Kelly. And so I started with her, not really knowing what to expect, Nathalie. Like it was my first time really being with a coach. It wasn't my first coaching session ever, but first time really being with a coach. Um, and yeah, I remember the first couple sessions we had, and I was like, oh my God, if that's the impact she's having on me, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to get there. We're going to find a way to make this happen, type of thing was
Mm-hmm.
the vibe. I can talk a lot about this. So you got to cut me off if I go long, because she's meant so much to me, and it's been such a big part of the process.
Well, I think the way you're talking about Kelly is the way a lot of people talk about their coaches. And, this is one of the reasons why we introduced being coached into our program. Since you've probably graduated, we we make it mandatory for everyone to have a minimum of 10 hours of being coached throughout the
Wow.
program so that they can experience what it is, the impact and the being in the client's seat, knowing what strategies work, what doesn't work, how they feel about it. It makes sense what you're saying that, especially if you choose this as a career, you kind of want to believe that you need it as well.
Yeah.
Being coached, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love to hear that you've added that in. Like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
I that sounds super valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting a lot of really good feedback, and it forces people to experience what they're doing,
Yeah.
because sometimes you don't really understand the impact of a strategy until you receive it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So I want to take you to one of your LinkedIn posts.
Okay.
You wrote about a call with your mom after
Yeah.
getting your promotion that changed everything for you, quote unquote. What changed?
Yeah. This was from last week, right? Yeah. I think the post was kind of like, hey, I'd love to talk to that version of me 10 years ago. Like, give me 10 minutes with that guy. Give me 10 minutes with that guy. And I think a lot of us have that feeling sometime. Um, Look, I grew up in this mindset of like, okay, the joy will come with the win. If we can get the good grades, if we can get the job out of school, if we can climb that ladder, if we can do that checklist that we grow up hearing about, then the joy will come as a byproduct, and like everything will kind of follow suit. Um, and that phone call was the night after getting, or the night of getting a promotion that I'd worked like 2.5 years for. Like, it was like my focus. It was kind of during COVID. So like we're sitting at home all day. There's nothing else to do. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put everything in this promotion, get this promotion. And it was one of those moments where you kind of sit there like, okay, if everything that I've put is for this thing and I just got this thing and I'm sitting here on the call with my mom telling her that I got it and I'm already thinking about the next thing, then this might not be a checklist issue. This might be a me issue. Like, this might be about how I'm framing, like, what do I define as success, you know? And so that phone call really made me question, what is my definition of success? I never thought about that before. What is my, what is the definition of good enough? What is the definition of like being good enough? And hung up the phone with her, went and journaled for a couple hours. And I asked myself that question of like, if this doesn't feel good enough, then like, what is good enough? And I came up with these 7 words, and I don't know if I can recite them here off the top of my head, but 7 values: honesty, humility, connection, and ambition.
Openness.
Ambition still, yeah, openness, right?
Presence.
Yes. And ambition. And I think the realization that night, in addition to realization 1, was, hey, if I am waking up every day and living life aligned to these 7 words, I can live with the result. And number 2 was that you could do that and keep ambition on the list. And if ambition is more coming from the place of like pursuing excellence and seeing like how good can I be? Like, out of everything in my control, like how far can I go? But it's the joy of playing the game as opposed to waiting for the shining trophy. And I think that's just freed me up to, even when we talk about like LinkedIn and how I'm approaching it and the vulnerability and the open bookness, I think it's been freed up by these 7 words, because that version of me who's showing up that open is living by those 7 words. And so I'm like, whatever happens, I'm good, you know? So it's left me feeling more freed up. And I wish I could talk to that guy for 10 minutes, because we would have saved a few years if he could have met me and heard that, you know what, you're chasing the stuff and maybe the slightly, in a way that's maybe not serving you as well as you think it might be.
Well, what would be the most important message that you want to tell that kid?
I would say you're not defined by the outcomes. You're not defined by the outcomes. Like, I'm a huge golfer, and it's the idea of like, are we going to judge ourselves as golfers by purely the end result, or are we going to judge ourselves by our work ethic, how we play the game, the integrity we have in the game, the swing and the process that we're building? There's going to be days where you hit a great shot and the wind blows and it takes it out of bounds. And like, if we're going to react to every single outcome and wake up every single day with a reset scoreboard, trying to prove ourselves to the world all over again, just so we can feel like good enough on the inside, that might not be the most, I don't know, to me, that's not the most fun way to play life. So I think I would tell him, hey, I think you might be giving the outcome a bit too much of the weight on the rubric.
So if the weight is not on the outcome, and I like your golf analogy because you talked about the way you play the game and the honor with that you play the game and integrity. Where's the emphasis for you now?
It's going to be at the value layer. So it's funny because we're actually, when I think about a couple of the folks on the roster right now, they're running companies, and from the outside, they're doing really well. But we've had this conversation the past few weeks around the focus for them being very much on the outcome. So their day and how they're feeling about themselves, their company, how they're showing up for their employees and their boards is kind of being dictated on a day-to-day basis based on the outcome. And so we've mapped out this diagram that's resonated with them so far. This might not resonate with everybody, but a diagram where at the surface top layer, it's the outcome. In the middle layer, it's like our inputs or our intentions. And the bottom layer is our values. And we've basically looked at where are they right now. And they're very much like, hey, whatever the values are, whatever the inputs are, I just care about where the ball goes, outcomes. And we've started to kind of challenge that, right? Of taking themselves out of it. If we were to have somebody else, a golfer, who was every single shot either kicking themselves or celebrating based on only the outcome, does that logically make sense? Like, is that actually the most logical way of judging ourselves? And the realization comes of like, you know what, maybe it shouldn't be 90% outcome. So to me, the more we can shift, and this isn't about just like hyping ourselves up and saying, hey, the outcome doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's just about looking at what is the most accurate, fair, realistic way to evaluate our own performance. And to me, if we can move that emphasis on the outcome a bit lower towards focusing on our intentions, what's in our control, and our values, it frees us up more and performance gets better. So that's where I focus now.
Yeah, interesting how performance. I would guess that performance actually increases more, maybe exponentially, when you're focused on the good, like the values and the essence of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like the difference between it, because the outcome still has a really important role of feedback. Like we need to see where the ball goes to know what we need to do differently next time. That is very different than the outcome dictating how we feel about ourselves and labeling ourselves as a success or failure. So when we talk about pressure to perform, and a couple of the, like when I think back to the roster from this year, a couple of leaders who they're running companies or running big teams, and from the outside, like they're hitting their metrics, they're hitting their KPIs, but when we're under an NDA and they're sitting across from me, they're saying, Tarik, I am sinking every day. Like we're winning on the outside, but I am burning out, I'm miserable. And we talk about pressure. And there's often this belief that, and I know you've seen this, Nathalie, that like, hey, if I can set out an 8 or a 9 out of 10 on pressure, I will catch everything and I will be on top of everything and things will be okay. And the conversation there is often like, hey, what do you think is the optimal pressure level for you to perform? And usually the answer is like somewhere between a 4 and a 6. I've had someone, for me, I think it's a 3. I've had someone say 3. It's usually not lower than 3. Like there is a role for pressure, but that's a super interesting conversation of like that gap between being at the 8.5 all day and being at the 3.5 all day. And like to your point, I see performance go exponential when you go from the 8 to the 7 to the 5. But we all have our things that keep us anchored to that 8 sometimes, right? There's a reason why we feel safe at the 8. And so I think a lot of times the coaching that we do, and I know I'm taking this in a different direction maybe than what you might have asked, but it is about understanding why we're stuck at the 8, understanding what's keeping us from that 4, and then just hammering away at that gap.
Yeah, no, I really like this direction. First of all, like, it's funny, when I started Coach Academy, I had a lot of trouble getting excited about revenue if it was just a number. Like I had to tie it into impact. So our mission statement became so important to me, which was to multiply the impact of coaching in the world by mentoring world-class coaches. That changed everything for me, because then I knew that the more we brought people into the company to become coaches, we were multiplying our impact. We were doing what we live. We were living out our mission, basically. And that became exciting. So now the revenue became a symbol of the impact. And that was a big turning point for me in my positioning as a founder, entrepreneur, kind of going, what is this about for me? And when you start to bring in, and you start to become like the like you go from being scraping by to a multi-million-dollar company, and you're going, you lose track of that mission sometimes, and you get caught up in this rat race. And what you're talking about, like that self-worth that's attached to the number, I went through that, and I had to get coached. Actually, I had to get back to myself to understand, what is this about? Because it wasn't fun anymore. For like a very short period of time, I was going, this isn't what I want for the long term, unless I can come back to my values and my roots and my, what is this for, right?
Yeah. What I so appreciate you sharing that. What, like, when you look ahead to Coach Academy and like what you're looking to build as like the next evolution of it, like what's firing you up right now?
Oh my God! Right now, and it was always this, but it's become a lot more clear in my mind. Is the impact that coaching can have in schools and education. I believe that we do the human race a huge disservice by not teaching these skills in elementary school, because they can be taught in elementary school.
Yeah.
You know, how to listen more deeply, how to connect more deeply with others on a conscious level, how to recognize that we all have an agenda, and when that agenda comes into play, you know, what does it mean to recognize versus appreciate versus, you know, just be with people, acknowledge them.
Yeah.
We don't, we can do those things. I've done it with kids. I've seen it done in elementary schools, and it's phenomenal. They're little sponges and they
Yeah.
love it. And we could be teaching what I consider to be the skills of influence, like the language of influence is coaching, the language of leadership is coaching.
Hmm.
We could be teaching this language in schools. And instead, we actually teach assessing, evaluating, judgment,
Yeah.
opposite of curiosity, right? We teach about assimilating instead of honoring the differences and the uniqueness of each. So, you know, this inquiry based learning is where my energy and passion is at this moment. Well, it has been for 10 years, but it will be for the next 10.
I'm so curious about this. That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. Wow. I mean, and I don't know if this will only be on video, but if you couldn't see Natalie, like how fired up she sounded when you talked about that, that was awesome to
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
No, I get very passionate, and also it's because I think probably every other person who comes to our program will say these words at least once in the program. Where was this 30 years ago? Where was this
Mm,
20 years ago? Where was this 10 years ago? How did I not know this up until now? And a lot of that rests on what's a closed-ended question and what's an open-ended question.
hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
these are things we just don't pay, we all know it. We just don't pay attention to them.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what drives me, and it
Yeah.
fires me up, and it really gets me excited. And the more people that we bring into the programs, the more people we can talk about this to, and
Yeah.
many of which are leaders in education. So it's really exciting.
So cool. I love that.
Yeah. So what fires you up about
Yeah.
this?
What else? Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like we should have blocked out 3 hours for this. What fires me up? Oh, so much. So much. Um, I seeing the look in someone's eye, like, so we meet every week, right, me and my leaders, seeing the look in their eye like week over week as they're starting to free up through the fears, through the pressures, through the limiting beliefs, like for me being on the in this chair and seeing that and seeing them lighten up, um like that look in their eye when they're like, Tarik, I the version of me 6 weeks ago would not have believed that we would have gotten here so fast. And
Mm.
just the look on their face as they say that, and like the mental avenues that open up for them as they think about the future, because they're no longer weighed down by this stuff that's been weighing on them usually for 10 plus years by the time they come and talk to me. There's like no feeling in the world that replaces that for me, like just that look in their eyes. A lot of my, well, you might have seen in my posts, but like my whole philosophy is like when I start working with somebody, I want them firing me in 3 months. I want you to call me in 3 months and say, Tarik, I cannot believe how far we got, and I no longer need our sessions week over week because we got there.
Mm.
And usually they feel bad when they call me and they tell me that, and I'm like, no, yo, this is why we're here in the first place. Like I've been waiting for this phone call for 3 months, and I think for me, I'm very like biased to action. I want things to move forward, and I never want my sessions with people to feel like, you know, an aimless walk in the meadow where we're just hanging out and seeing where things go. It's like, no, before we even start working, like we're defining where you're at, we're clear on where you want to get to in 3 months, and we are like hand in hand marching towards that journey. Like everything is framed around that. So for me, like seeing these people for 90 days and then having them call me and say, "Hey, we're good," is it's, you know what it is? Like that's just the, we talk about those 7 words, right? Like the values we talked about 10 minutes ago, and that is like those values manifesting into the impact I want to have on people. It's that phone call. That's like the best representation of the impact I want to have on people. And so that fires me up so much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, and when you say, I call it coaching yourself out of a job, because that's really
Yes.
what the objective is. If you're truly coaching to empower others, you want them to give you that phone call that says, "I don't need you anymore because I feel like I'm resourceful, whole, and capable." Right? So, what do you think? Because there's so many coaches who call themselves coaches. They're not qualified, trained, certified. What do you think is the difference you're making as a coach?
The difference I'm making in the clients, or like the
Well,
difference
in the world
between,
of coaches, like qualified, unqualified, people who just call themselves coaches, like what's the value that you bring, having been trained and certified, and taken the time to do that?
yeah, look, I definitely, so I think about like the three, like the triangle of like coaching, mentorship, and therapy. And
Mhm.
there's often questions, right? Of course, about the differences between the three. And usually the first time I sit with someone, before we even sign on to work together, what I'm kind of looking for is whether they work with me or not. Does coaching in and of itself make sense for this objective? Um, I think it's 50-50 in terms of people that ask me about coaching versus therapy and coaching versus mentorship, especially
Mhm.
these CEOs that have their boards and they have their investors and they have 25 different ears, 25 different people in their ear telling them what they think they should do based on their previous experience. Great. You have your advisors, you have your mentors, you have people leaning on their own paths and experience and wisdom to direct, right? And very much I'm looking for in our first sit down, like, is that what this person's looking for, or is it more coaching? And I'll get to your thing about the certification in a second. And then therapy, of course, like looking back to explain present through clarity of the past versus looking forward, right? I think the certification, I think of it in 2 ways. One, there's no way that I am the coach I am today in terms of my deep inner belief that like you can put me in front of anybody, and if they genuinely want to do the work, we will very rapidly pinpoint what's going on and unlock it, and they will call me in 3 months. Like there is a deep belief within me that like put anyone on this call and like we're going to get there in 3 months. I believe that. There's no way that I have that belief without the process we went through in the academy or through whatever certification, because it gives you just that solid foundation to build off of and catch yourself if you ever start seeping into advisor territory, right?
Mhm.
Now, at the same time, um, the certification alone, I don't see it as a crutch. I don't see it as something that, hey, we did the certification, it's a checkbox. Now I'm going to stop my learning. I'm going to just like do what I want to do and show a prospective leader that I have the 3 letters, and then they're going to immediately hand over the credit card. Like that is not at all how it works, right? So I think it's the balance of the two. It builds the foundation, but then it is on each of us to like not only continuously improve, but find like what's our way of coaching. Like there's other people that love having clients for a year, and like let's do a monthly thing for a year and like expand this and have longer relationships. I'm like, I, it would be the exception for me to have someone on my roster doing that, because I feel like I'm a high energy person that wants to get stuff done with people, and I want to track those people in too, right, for the 3 months. So certification, I don't know how to build the foundation without it, because it it's the fundamentals, right? Like I joined that class knowing 20% of what I thought I knew about coaching.
Mhm.
Like it taught me so much. I do see people waiving the certification as like a replacement for further education or growth, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I actually really love what you just said about it. It's not just a checkbox, it's something that you continuously engage with, your own development, your own signature as a coach, and what that means to you.
Yeah.
Um, So here are some of the testimonials that people have written. They're on your LinkedIn, and I thought I'd
It's
take
for
a
me or for Coach Academy?
for you.
Oh goodness.
Oh,
Okay,
they're
let's hear it.
testimonials that you
Yeah. Okay.
for
Okay.
you.
Okay. Let's do it. We're gonna go there.
So people have said he asked all the right questions, and I quickly realized that these fears were just fabrications in my own mind. Some Someone else said, "What I love about Tarik is how calm and professional he is. He has a soft yet strong, confident tone, which really helped me confide in him. And just after a couple of sessions with him, I started to feel a real shift within me. He helped me uncover those internal barriers that were holding me back and find actionable paths forward to overcome them. He also has an ability to ask the right question, challenge assumptions, inspire new perspectives, ignite paths of clarity and purpose." How does it feel to hear that? And also, like, yeah, what do you want to say about those testimonials?
Um, that's always gonna mean a lot. I haven't sat and read those for a bit,
Mm,
but as you read them, I remember
good.
seeing that. I think s- I so everything we do is under an NDA. So when I like post about a client like pulling something off in a few weeks, what I can't do is I can't name the client. I can't give them credit. But the reality is like so much of that work is them. Like I being coachable and being open to doing the work and showing up every week with high energy and saying, okay, Tarek, like here's what I want to work through, and like being that open and being that reflective and being that open to even challenge your own beliefs, and then landing on an action item at the end of the call and actually following through on that. I made a video 2-3 weeks ago about one of my, he's a CEO, and he every week, the day before my session with him, I'll get a PDF sent to me of his homework, and that's the work. So when I hear the testimonials, I look, yes, it means a lot, you know, and those testimonials come after I'm already seeing that look in their eye, and like those testimonials are the version that they're okay sharing publicly, which is maybe a bit less raw than the version they'll tell me in person, or the version that's kind of screaming out of their eyes as they're hitting realizations. And so I think, yes, it feels good. It makes me feel like, again, it's impact aligned to those values, but oh my God, such a high percentage of that success for each of those people is because of the work that they've put in. And I'm not talking 8-10 hours a week. Like we're doing an hour session, but they're carving out time for their hour of homework in between. And I say that just because if you're thinking about getting a coach and you're worried that it's a 14-hour week commitment, no, this stuff is like we meet once a week for an hour, and then we land on an action that's feasible, and then they execute on it. And you're going to show up next week with a slightly better problem than you did this week, and we're going to keep marching till we get you out, right? So, not to dodge your question, I told you I don't love talking about myself, but I genuinely mean it when I say that the credit, the credit goes to each of them, and if they're listening, they know who they are, and they know how proud I am of them, of how much they've crushed it this year.
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of what I was highlighting, and why I chose these quotes is because they speak to what the space you've created for the client to do the work, and that safety of the space. I love the NDA thing, the NDA coach. It's kind of fun.
Appreciate that.
um, I think that's clever because a lot of people who are CEOs or founders or leading companies or big roles, they don't have a lot of people to confide in, and that one word tells so much to that person who's looking for a safe space to land, right?
Yeah, I appreciate you calling that out, because if we're gonna, I won't pretend to say that that came out of a focus group. That came after 3 weeks of thinking about it, and randomly in line at a coffee shop, I was like, oh my God, I think that's the word. And, but to your point, um, I hear a lot of, hey, Tarek, I have friends, but I don't want to burden them with this.
Yeah.
Or I'm so busy that I don't want to come home at 7 p.m. and then talk to my husband or wife or partner about work all the time. I feel like I'm burdening them. Like the people that I'm trying to attract, they're self-aware and they care about the people around them. So they're not going to be the people who are like, hey, I'm going to dump everything on my spouse, right? They don't want to do that. And you think about these founders, you think about these senior leaders, these execs, to your point, they have to be on all day. There is a veil on all day for their teams, their employees, their boards, their investors. And so it's really hard for them to find the time or space to ever work through the inner pressures and fears and limiting beliefs that even the best leaders out there deal with, right? That even we deal with as coaches, right? It's human nature, but they don't have that space usually. And so I think that's also why I love working with them, because I know this is a group that on the outside gets celebrated, but on the inside, they are often isolated. And I appreciate you calling out that thing about the safe space, because something that I hear is like, hey, Tarik, that thing I just told you, I've never said out loud before. I've never said it to my spouse.
Yeah.
I've never thought that before. And that's how I know, right? That, okay, they are feeling like they can say it, and that just creates the conditions for them to just crush it.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to, in fact, it happened this week where there are times when you don't want to be the strategic leader. You don't want to be the person who has it all together and who has to be centered and calm and thinking about being a coach, thinking about all of the like the impact on every single person, including your family. Because if you express doubt, if you express fear, even to family, they might get fearful. They
Yeah.
might feel like, oh wait, you mean mom doesn't have this all together? Like mom's not, the person I think she is. And then if you express that to a colleague at work and you're not mindful of the fact that you're a leader and they're a colleague and, often answering to you,
Yeah.
there's that double-edged sword. Like they are in it for the work, but they're also realizing that they have a job that is a vulnerable position to be in. So we are all like, there's nowhere to let it out
Yeah.
except with you, right? The NDA
Yes.
code.
That's what, yes.
This is where we
Yes.
go, oh my God, I can say what I want to say. You're not impacted. You have no expected or cherished outcomes from this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
other than you're there to support, right? And that is the most beautiful place for a person who has so much to hold to come to.
And shout out to Kelly again for the 8th time for being that person for me, right?
Right.
There's no way to keep growing without hitting ceilings and fears. Like if we're going to avoid a world where we feel any fear, let's just stay where we are. Let's stay at the status quo and not try to grow. Like for me, I'm comfortable with the fact that as I keep growing, there's going to be more scary things that pop up. And again, everything you just described and what I'm trying to create for the people that look to me, like that's what Kelly's created for me, right? So that's, shout out to her, because it's amazing to have that.
Yeah. So what does it mean then for you, for people to run towards what's holding them back? Like when we say this as coaches, it feels a little bit coachy jargon. What does it really mean to sit in a session and run towards the things that are holding you back?
I think a lot of it is, and you tell me if I'm capturing your question. I think a lot of it is just like the openness of, hey, we're here not to take it for granted that this fear is going to persist and this is what we have to live with, right? We're not taking it at face value that this is factored in and this fear, this pressure is always going to be there. We are in a space where we are acknowledging that if we know where we are, if we know where we want to get to, there's going to be a set of things keeping us from that thing, from that destination. And these 2, 3, 4 fears, pressures are part of that gap. And so when we talk about running at the thing, I think what we mean is we're not sitting in session trying to come up with band-aid solutions and different surface level, top-down solutions to get through it, keeping the fears in. We're staring at the 3 or 4 things that are the fears and the barriers, right? So it's very much like an inside-out approach where we go into the core of like, what is your brain saying with this fear, right? What's actually happening? What's the lay of the land of what your mind is telling you that is making you feel held back? And I used to really rely on books and TED Talks and external advice for the next life hack. And we're talking like 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago. And I think it's kind of that difference between relying on the external stuff for things that might be more band-aid solutions versus staring these things in the face, going deep inside, figuring out what's going on, solving it at the core, so that then, okay, if we need to augment learnings with different things and plug blind spots, we can use resources for that. But we're sitting here not afraid to look at the actual three things that we have to look at, the actual three fears.
And when you talk about them, you break them down, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
I love to, work through that part with coaches, because we're training coaches, but also clients who are, held back by fear, mostly because they have made up a story about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that story, when you break it down, doesn't have the hold it had before. And that breaking down is talking about it, inviting it in. And these are the ways that I feel are the biggest. And those are the things that, because we talk about like the aha moments in coaching, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes those moments come a week after the conversation, where a client is sitting with something that you talked about and they're calling. I'm sure you get these texts and these calls. Oh my God, I just got it. Oh my God, I just had this aha moment from a conversation that took place 1 or 2 weeks ago. So it's this perpetual, process. Yeah.
100%. And I think that fear one is so interesting because what I have found, and I'm curious your thoughts here too, what I have found is that oftentimes like the default is to fight the fear, either fight the fear in our heads and just like this constant battle of fear versus trying to be brave. And number two is, of course, I lose my train of thought. Number two is feeling that, feeling that the fear needs to be brought down to zero.
Mm.
And there's a couple questions that I love asking, which usually gets people to say, oh my God, wait. And the first one is like, what is the role that, if you imagine this fear is like, you have a board of directors in your head, and the fear is one of the voices at that board of directors seat at the table. What role does that fear think it's playing for you? Like I know we hate it. I know we want to get rid of it down to, you're saying zero, but in a sec, we'll touch on that. Not you, but the client. What role does this person maybe want to play for you? And like, just like sitting there and looking at, hey, this fear might not be all evil. Like if we can dial it down to a 1, a 2, or a 3, it's actually productive to some level. I always see people kind of like their shoulders come down because it's no longer this battle to get this thing down to zero. It's a process of understanding, what is the fear actually trying to tell you? What is it trying to protect you from? What is it trying to give you? What number from 0 to 10 is this fear optimized at? And it's usually not a 0, right? If we had no fear of losing money, we'd gamble, right? If we had no fear of snakes, we'd go pet cobras in the wild. Like it's rarely a 0. 1, 2, 3 out of 10. If we can find that, well, okay, if you're at an 8 and you're saying 3 is optimal, what does that voice in your head, that fear voice, what would it hypothetically need to believe to feel safe quieting down to a 3? Even if you don't have it yet, they'll say, well, you know what, if I believed these 3 things and if I had a guarantee on X, then I could dial it down to a 3. Okay, great. Now we know the 4 things that your brain needs to believe to quiet this specific fear down. We're no longer trying to fight the thing and kick it when it comes in. We're understanding it. And then we find ways to get access to those 4 things. So it's like this type of thing where the relationship we have with fear is so interesting, because I think if it's too high, it can stifle us. If it's at 0, then we can sometimes act recklessly. But a lot of people that sit with me, they have this initial goal of getting the thing down to 0. You can see it. They're like clenching their jaws. They're like, Tarik, I got to get rid of this thing. And almost always 10 minutes later, they're like, you know what? We just got to get it down to a 2 and then we're good. Sorry, I get fired up about this.
No,
but that's like, yeah, like I'm so curious.
I'm
like,
actually playing some fear out in my mind.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. But I also recognize that what you're doing in that conversation is challenging the relationship people have with fear.
Yeah.
And it's subjective, like, and that's what's the beautiful thing about it. It can change. You can change it. And this is where coaching is, I think, the gift that all people need. Everyone deserves a coach for this reason, to challenge the stories you're telling yourself that are keeping you stuck, keeping you small, keeping you so-called safe. Safety has an opportunity cost, right? And so there's this really cool relationship that you bring in by just asking incredibly good questions, right?
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So
this is fun. I'm having a blast. How you doing?
Yeah, it's fun. In fact, so let's play a game.
Okay.
What are some of your favorite coaching questions? Is there any that stand out?
Oh, this is funny. Okay. There actually aren't. So there's a couple that when we first sit down, this is again when I first meet somebody, and like it's that meeting where like they could beg me to take their Amex and I'm not going to swipe it. Like we're not doing that in our first session. We're just like talking. And like there's like this same 4 or 5 questions I'll ask to understand where they're at, where they want to get to. I love asking the question of, hey, if you're going to call me in 3 months to fire me because everything has gone so great and you are absolutely elated, what has to be true about your life and this entire topic for you to pick up that phone in 3 months and call me? Because that's what I want. I love that because you just get people to like almost dream about this outcome that their present brain doesn't think is possible. But in this question, they're like, oh, Tarik, I wish I could XYZ. I love that one. I do love the fear relationship one because that comes up a lot. I think that flow of like understanding the board of directors, understanding what it's trying to say, understanding the gap from 1 to 10 of current state, what you want to get to, that game people really tend to like. I actually have a post about that next week because I just want to like get that out there and be like, yo, like you can use this now or in 10 years. This is how I love walking through any fear. But in my initial coaching sessions, Nathalie, like with peers, I used to have like a sheet next to me of my favorite coaching questions. And what started to happen is I was too preoccupied with asking the right question, and it kind of took me out of the present. I think the number one change I've made in the past couple of years is I am just rolling with it. And I don't mean I'm winging it. Like we have a structure, we know what we're trying to get to, we pick our goal for the session, like there's purpose behind all of it, but I don't find myself leaning on a bank of questions anymore. I'm just trying to be as in the moment as I can. And I've also, you know what, I'll change how I ask questions based on who I'm talking to. Because I'll think about the 6 people right now. Like there's someone who is going to be way more analytical. There's someone who needs a bit more time before they answer. There's someone who, if the question is more than a couple sentences long, they'll start thinking, so I got to keep it shorter. Like I care more about tailoring everything to what I know about this person's mind by the time I get to session 2 or 3 than I do about favorite coaching questions. But this might be controversial. Like maybe I should have a bank of 10 or 15, but
you're absolutely right on. Intuition is where I always tell people there is no such thing as a powerful question. It's only how it lands on the person.
That's a great point. I like that.
So, but I do have a couple that I know I love because they do challenge people to step out of their usual ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And like my favorite right now, and it changes. My favorite right now is if you were to fast forward 5 years from today, you're 5 years older, 5 years more experienced, 5 years wiser. What would that wisdom have for you right now? And it really helps people step out of their because what we do is we just get so narrow-minded, we get caught. I always think of the experiment with the I think it's the ants where they draw the circle around the ant. Did you ever see that on YouTube?
No, I haven't. Tell me more.
So the ant's wandering aimlessly, and then they draw a circle with a felt pen on a piece of paper where the ant is, and the ant is suddenly confined by the circle. Can't see it. I think it can smell the ink, so it smells the the circumference of the circle.
Yeah.
And it stays in the circle until it takes enough of a step where it realizes, it's not a boundary. And so it starts wandering again. And then the person will draw another circle around it and it will stay stuck in that circle for a bit until it realizes, I can break that boundary. And I feel like that's what we're doing in coaching. we are breaking down the boundaries that people put around themselves, or these invisible circles that keep them stuck. So it's very,
That,
it's
yeah, I love that. I gotta look that up. That is, it's so cool to see these things play out in nature too, right?
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
that's a
yeah,
great question. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, yeah. So I know I see the time. I don't want to. I want to respect your time. I don't want to go too far
I'm good.
over.
This is my favorite thing. All like this has been amazing. So, but yes, whatever time we need to
Well,
abide by. Yeah.
you talked a little bit about your LinkedIn approach. You talked about well, what I notice is the vulnerability of your posts. That it feels like a real conversation in a world that is increasingly, I find deceptive with AI, with
Hmm.
the way that people are using AI, even AI avatars of actual people that look real. So I think it's super refreshing to see the way that you approach your posting. And I wonder, a lot of people tell me they're held back from starting their social media because that person in high school who might see their post from like 20 years ago, or the family member, or there's somebody out there that they don't want to be vulnerable around, or to, or for. um, what do you have to say about that? Like, what's the thing that keeps you being authentic and posting your truth?
Yeah. Look, LinkedIn. My relationship with LinkedIn. First of all, I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to hear that reflected back. So that means a lot to me. I This is part of the answer, but I'll start at the beginning. But part of the answer is I would find it very stressful to try to be one person online and then another person in person. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just like unify the two, and like if that means people don't like it. I'm sure there's people that like will read my post and be like, "Oh my god, this guy again, hit the X, get him out of here." I'm confident that's going to happen. But I think that's the cost of doing this. My first LinkedIn post, LinkedIn for me used to be this place where I'd show up and it's all posts about people getting promoted and climbing the ladder, and that was my entire feed. My initial LinkedIn posts, which were right after Coach Academy, I was very safely taking an HBR article and adding a three line comment on it, and then panicking and refreshing every few minutes to see if people liked my post. That is where I started, 100%. Like, let me raise my hand and say,
Yeah.
what you see right now is not where I started. Um, I think in 2022, I posted 3 times. It would take me 2.5 weeks to write one post. There was a lot of pressure, and of course Kelly and I like worked through this as well. But if we fast forward and I start thinking about what helped me free up, um, I hit a point, and I think it was in Lisbon. We were at this we were on a European trip before a wedding, and in Lisbon I remember sitting there in one of the big town square, and for whatever reason I was thinking about LinkedIn in Lisbon. I don't know why, but I had this realization where I was getting in my own way. Like, I was creating stories in my head about what will people think about my posts? Is it going to resonate? It was very much focused on the results. And similar to the conversation we had 40 minutes ago about the post from last week and the outcome layer versus the values layer, I found some comfort leaning on that same framework and saying, you know what, Tarik, like, I would rather get laughed at for something that feels like it's me than keep pretending to be something that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can look at anything that I write and say before I hit that blue button that it is in my voice, it's aligned to some or all of those 7 values, and it's genuinely written to help one person out there. Like, when I write, there's like this like hypothetical person I have in my mind who is the person that I want to see this stuff. If it hits those 3 criteria, I can hit the blue button and be okay. Now, it was absolutely scary the first time I did that and implemented that after Lisbon. It was very scary. I remember posting something and like 5 minutes had gone by and no one liked it. I was like, oh my God, like, am I a bad writer? What did I do? I think some of it also is just evidence that the world doesn't collapse if you write a post that doesn't do very well. And I think it just became a comfort thing
Yeah.
where more and more I'm pushing the boundaries of what feels comfortable to me. But Natalie, I think for me, it comes back to like, if it's aligned with my values and it's my voice and it's written for that one person, I can go to bed at night knowing that I put my best foot forward. And if I can do that, and that means that I'm going to piss off some people, I'm just so at peace with that right now. I didn't start there though, and I want to call that part out. It took me time.
I just
Yeah.
so love that you talked about that, because that's exactly what I'm hearing people say. They take weeks to prepare one post, and then attach so much to, is it going to get a like? And it's tough to battle that inner voice of worthiness that we started with today.
Yeah.
When people aren't liking or reposting or whatever. And I've always said, if my posts and anything that I can do reach one person, make a difference in one person's way of thinking, being, seeing something, then it's worth it. And it isn't about the multiple, it's about the one. Yeah. And that feels a little more reachable. That feels a little more doable. And yeah. So the other thing that I'm curious about is your pathway to this career, this beautiful place you're at with your coaching and a full roster and feeling really good about this. People say all the time, like, how do you build a coaching business? What do I need to do? How long does it take? And all the questions that, new people in our programs, people transitioning careers, people adding coaching to an existing career. What would you say are like the top 3 things a coach can do to build a practice?
I'm going to pause and think about this. I think sometimes when you're in your own journey, it's because look, like I think, as you characterize my journey as full roster, which like, okay, factually true. I think about the past year and a half and like, oh my God, the roller coaster of like thinking about doing this and then like getting your first group of clients at a certain rate or a certain seniority. Like it's scary. So the inside story is a lot different than the story that someone might see when they just look at my LinkedIn profile. And I think that's true for everyone that goes through this. I think I'll riff on a couple of key things. A lot changed for me when I got really clear about who that one person is. Like we've talked a lot today about, generally most human beings at some point in their life could benefit from what coaching does, whether it's an ICF, whatever. At some point, this service or this process will be helpful for most people out there, whether it's for relationships or personal or career or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of people that a coach can help. I think getting really specific in my own mind first on like what are the psychographics of the person that I want to be working with, and understanding that person really well and understanding the role that I can play for that person. And then building that rock solid, deep belief that, if there's a person out there with these psychographics that needs these things, like, yes, we'll get on a call and I'm guaranteed that we're going to get there in 3 months. Like, I think that inner belief is what, for me, we built up through coaching with Kelly too. Like that didn't just start day one, the minute I graduated from Coach Academy. But I think that then comes out in how we show up. I think that I'll see coaches on LinkedIn who are maybe saying the same things, but you can almost feel like they're hesitant about the value they can bring, or they're hesitant about, hey, will someone like this? And I think that comes through. So I would say, number one, like doing the inner work of like, what are the things that are scaring you about this journey? And working through that is step one, because it just unlocks how we show up and how we write about ourselves and how we talk about our work. Number two is, what is number two? I mean, there's a whole thing around just getting clear on like what you're offering and like being on LinkedIn and being open to meeting new people. Like that comes with everything. I think the other piece is, like, it's like we talked about at the beginning, like, for me, this started with meeting friends at 7 a.m. and buying their coffee so I can coach them. Like the economics that are backwards. I was paying to coach people. Yes. But it built up that skill. It built up the belief, right? And I think I'm so grateful for those friends a few years ago and those colleagues from Coach Academy, because they played that role for me. And I think if you can build up your own belief in yourself as a coach, if you can get really clear on who it is that you're serving, then you can show up as a person that when you sit on the phone with a person you want to help, they can feel that you already know that you can that you can get them there. And this is such a trust-based path. Like I think building trust is the number one thing that matters. And when you think about, it's like how we talked about Kelly and hiring Kelly. How much trust did I need in Kelly to say, yes, okay, Kelly, like you will be the person that I will sit weekly with and tell you things that I've never said out loud before. I think it's hard to build that trust if we don't deep down believe that we are the person to do that, right? So I wish I could give you, and I know you're not asking for this, like the 10 steps, right, of how to get there, but I really think it's about these like big core boulders and getting this foundation really set and solid so that you can show up on LinkedIn freed up, so that we could do this podcast and like I don't have a script. I don't have like oh my god, it's just like, yo, we're just doing it, right? And people can feed off that energy. At least for me, that's been like the Tarik way of doing it for me, where I feel like I can be my best. Does that, I don't know how clear that was. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like challenge me on it. Like I'm happy to go deeper.
Oh,
I don't think that
no.
was the best answer, but that's really the foundation that
I think you
that,
gave
that I said.
people
Yeah.
like some key things to think about in terms of niche and like who is your client, who are you designing your service for, because your package has to make sense for the people that you're offering it to.
Yeah.
I think the thing that maybe I'm also hearing, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but the clarity that you have, or the decision that you made to pursue this work, that this isn't a one foot in, one foot out the door. This is what you want, because like it or not, to be an entrepreneur, it sounds great, and that's what if you plan on pursuing like a solopreneurship as a coach, it's running a business, it's building a client space, it's sales, it's marketing, it's all those things. You have to be willing to take those steps, right?
And yes, and I think designing those steps and your process in a way that feels fun for you. Like I enjoy it. Like I enjoy going on LinkedIn and posting. I enjoy, like, this conversation's been, if I had a client session today, I'd say that was my favorite thing of the day. This has been my favorite thing all day, right? Like talking about this, and being in client sessions and all the admin and the back end stuff and setting up everything in between. Like I love it, right? And I think I read something this morning from Stephen Bartlett, and he was talking about I'm going to butcher this, but he was saying something about if you enjoy something, you're going to be able to outlast the natural cycles of like failure and learning and getting back up. If you enjoy it and it's fun and it feels like you're playing, then that's going to be, you're going to be able to hang in there for longer, right? And that's why I made the comment about this hasn't been like an one straight line upward trajectory, right? There's been ups and downs and fears and like all of that on this journey. But the joy just outweighs that for me. And so I'd say really like check in with yourself on like how much do you deeply, deeply love doing this, right? And if that answer is really high, then I think there is a way to design it in a way that works for you in your life. And I feel grateful to be sitting here, feeling like I'm finding that as we speak.
Yeah, and also like there are other ways to use this skill. Like for me, I feel like every leader needs to have coaching mindset, coach awareness at least. And a lot of companies are now employing coaches and calling them, internal roles, coaching roles. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this, but if your intention is to be a solopreneur and to pursue this like a building a practice, I think what you brought to the table, the things that we talked about, are essential. Like you've got to do that work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do end with one final
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
One question for everybody, so you
Cool.
get to hear it.
All right.
And answer it. If you had the chance to ask one question to the universe and get the answer to it, what would the question be?
One question to the universe. I'm going to go so off topic on this.
That's good.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I don't know. So like part of my, like you go on YouTube and it'll like recommend you stuff that you've watched before. So like 20% of my YouTube is now like stuff about the solar system and the universe and like all that stuff out there. I find it fast. It'll be like 10 p.m. I'll be sitting over here and I'm like, it'll be that one where it shows like it'll zoom out from Italy all the way out into like what we know about the universe. And my mind, it just makes me feel so small in like a very humbling like way.
Mhm.
I would just be like, yo, what is out there? What is out there? And that might be the least sophisticated thing that we've talked about today, but I'm like, what is out there? I'll sometimes like I'll just look up. There was a time when like Venus was really close to the moon or something, and like you could see Venus in the sky. And like I'll just stand there in -10 looking at the sky, being like, what the hell is out there? So I would love to know what else is out there. I
Oh,
don't know if that ties to coaching. I don't think it does, but
I'm
that is
happy
the most
that.
honest answer
Yeah.
to that question.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's very cool to hear that question, and also just all the different questions that people have. It's
Yeah.
That's why it's a good question. You never know what you're
Cool.
gonna get.
Never know what you're gonna get. This has been so much fun. Like this is, I hope, yeah, I hope this was fun to listen to as fun as
Yes,
it
it
was
was
for me to talk
awesome.
to.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm gonna make sure Kelly listens to this so she
Oh
gets
yeah.
all the kudos. And yeah, just good luck. And if people can reach you, we're gonna put your where they can reach you in the credits. But do you want to give them your website or your LinkedIn?
Yeah, the website's tarikali.com. I was so grateful that that thing existed. That
You got your name. That's good.
heart skipped a beat when I hit enter to check if that existed.
Yeah.
Tarikali.com. LinkedIn is where the easiest way to get to me.
Yeah.
Or the
Okay.
golf course. Find me at the
Or the
golf course.
golf course.
Yeah, if I don't
Okay.
respond. Yes.
Good. Well, I think you must have at least 1 or 2 weeks left on the golf course now, or is it done?
Hey, we got a month. I will go until they kick me off.
Okay.
I will. We'll find a month out of this for sure.
That's so good.
We'll
All
find a
right.
month.
Well, enjoy. And thank you again. A really great information for people. And just, yeah, so happy we had this time.
So much fun. Thank you. I appreciate you.